I'm not rooted in this sport. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend. Ultimately, I'm a child of God. And with that mentality, no storm can take me down.
Your big turning point here, though, was not on the football field. The big turning point you talked about was at an FCA retreat, your first year on campus. And that really was where things got on a good trajectory. What do you really think it was that shifted in that first FCA retreat? 'Cause it sounds like you were at a pretty low point when you went, and then when you exited, you found something new that really, really helped you.
Yeah, I think for me what it was, and this is kind of something that I've thought about a lot recently, it's identity. That's kind of the word that I've really been kind of resonating recently, because at the end of the day, like, you play this game and you're up here at the facility for so long and you're playing football, and it's very easy to get wrapped in a performance-based mindset. I think for a lot of my life, that's, my identity was a football player. And so I think really at that first time at that FCA retreat, College Weekend, which was about 2.5 years ago, now that's kind of the main thing I took away from that was my identity. It was, I'm not rooted in this sport. I'm a lot bigger than this. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend. Ultimately, I'm a child of God. And I think that was something that resonated with me. And so no matter, what I go through on the football field and what goes on off the field, like, I'm a child of God, and my Lord and Savior is Jesus Christ. And that's something that I'm rooted in. And with that mentality, there's nothing that, no storm can take me down. So.
And absolutely not. And then the second year at that retreat, you bring 11 players to the retreat, 9 of which got baptized. Pretty cool. One of the things I wanted to ask about is, how'd you get to watch those 9 players transform as people in this past year?
It's been so cool. It's been so cool to see. And I think a lot of those guys, maybe they're not here right now. A lot of those guys transferred out, but I still keep up with those guys. And every single one of them, I text them, like, hey, how's your faith journey going? All of them like, dude, it's awesome. Like, I'm starting to talk to my girlfriend about this, starting to get her plugged in. And every single guy has just been like transformed from the inside out. And now that their works are starting to reflect that faith and to reflect that moment that they had, 2 years ago at that camp. And so it's just been so cool to kind of see God work with those guys, and ultimately their lives were changed forever. And that's just something that, you can't take away. So.
And then how was this year at the retreat? Because we're now on year 3 of it. What was this year like? Bringing more new players to the retreat? How did it all go this year?
Oh yeah, no, it was awesome. Awesome. Very same experience. Kind of usually those guys that you're kind of trying to get to show up to College Weekend, they don't want to show up. Like, you tell them, you're like, hey, like, we're going to be out in the middle of Glen Rose, Texas. There's not going to be much Wi-Fi. You're going to be staying in log cabins together. They're like, oh, heck no, I'm not doing that. And so it's hard to kind of pull them in. I've always said I'm a great salesman. And so I'm able to kind of get them in. And then ultimately, I think we had either 10 or 11 guys show up this year, and everybody left, changed in some way. Everybody was making that prayer ultimately on Saturday night to either surrender their lives to Christ for the first time or re-surrender themselves. And it's just been so cool. Me and then Pat Ford, our team chaplain, ultimately he's kind of runs FCA, and then Ray Knight as well. We just got him full-time staff here at FCA. They've just been awesome, and just ultimately just, carrying their cross each and every day to get these young athletes, just get them to hear the word and to get them into the environment at College Weekend. And then like ultimately the guys that went, like, we're so close now. Like, those guys we were coming back right when we came back from FCA, or from that College Weekend, the first FCA we were together. We were just in a huddle, just talking about the weekend, just laughing, cracking jokes. Like, it's just such a cool experience, and it's just something that's so much deeper than you can even explain. So
you were great in high school, obviously, but then you come here and you're sitting behind Jordan McCloud, who's the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. You're going to feel it's impossible not to feel a separation in that room. And, you need something to help hold on to this discomfort, because eventually you overcame that.
That's kind of where I originally learned, like, you can't be rooted in this sport, because like I was, the 3rd/4th string quarterback. Like, I was at practice, and I would just sit there and watch Jordan and RJ Martinez. You're kind of just sitting there, you're not playing at all. And so it's just like, your identity can't be in this sport, because if you do that and you have that performance mindset, like, I have no performance. So therefore it's like, there's nothing to run it off of. So it's like, kind of like that year was so cool, because it gave me a new perspective, not only to sit back and watch and to learn from a guy like Jordan and a guy like RJ, who were two great quarterbacks, right? I played some big time football, but also as well, just having that identity, kind of like I was saying before, like you just can't be rooted in the sport. It's so up and down, and the waves are going to be crashing and turning every time. And so that kind of like that year was kind of when I became kind of rooted, was true.
When you found that extra boost in that first retreat, do you think that was something that helped you in the fall? Just focus on the day-to-day and whatever opportunities you had, just to embrace them, be grateful for them. And before you knew it, you're playing against Louisiana Monroe.
I was thrown in the fire a little bit. I had to fail, and then you learn to pick yourself back up, and then ultimately to keep following what is true. Then eventually you look up and you're playing the game like Yale Monroe, and then that's kind of you look, and then you can do nothing after the game except for thank you, God. Like you've been with me this entire time, and even though I couldn't see it, there you were. And so,
how relieved were you after that game when you got in the game and you were able to go in there and have success?
Yeah, it had a lot of adrenaline pumping, that was for sure. I think that game was so unique because it was, my first ever like time playing, and I don't think it stopped raining once. That entire game. It was just a monsoon the entire time out there in Louisiana. And so they obviously really took advantage of my legs because Jordan was kind of dealing with an ankle injury. And so they're like, all right, Brad, get in there and basically just run the ball. And I think relief is kind of an understatement. I was feeling it after that game. I was like, once that adrenaline wore off, I was hurting. But this is a part of it. But then you look at it, you're like, besides me feeling terrible right now physically, like that was such a cool experience. Like it shows you how much your coaches trust like an 18-year-old kid. Like holy cow, like Coach Kenny has, I kind of like see like, man, this guy, believes in me at a whole other level.
So you have that game, things are going pretty well. Jordan gets to finish out the bowl game, and then transfer portal the next year is like a who's who of people that want to go and win this job. It's You didn't get it handed to you by any stretch of the imagination. Nate Ernell was a tremendous recruit. Got a guy coming over from SMU who's going to maybe start for Ball State this year. And then you got a guy coming from Oregon State who was a super successful player at the FCS level, ends up going to UIW. And then I think, who's the other guy?
Yeah, it was a Holden Gerner from Auburn. Yeah, Auburn.
So you got who's who guys. And pretty much the funny thing is the media consensus, and that wasn't true in the building, but the media consensus, no one considers you even a candidate in this job. They're
not at all.
One of these.
Not at all, yeah.
How did, well, actually, I'll ask you a few questions. First of all, what did you learn from that?
I think what I learned, especially with that group, and then Keldrick Luster, who came in from SMU, probably me to start at Ball State. What I learned from that group of guys, especially in the fall, like we would go out and as quarterbacks and just go out to eat together every week. And like that was something that we never did before. And so and you finally like develop that friendship, develop those relationships. And that's something that I've been able to apply now to the quarterback room and now. And like the quarterback we have now, quarterback room we have now, like those are my best friends.
That's awesome.
And that's like something I've realized, like, man, there's only one quarterback on the field at a time, but there's only so many individuals in the sport of football that play quarterback. And so the guys that do play quarterback, like those are the guys you want to be closest with. And I think it all started last year when I was able to be with guys like Nate, Holden, Vonnie, and Keldrick. Were able to kind of show me the way and see kind of what a quarterback room looks like.
Totally different thing. Bo Sparks. Last year, like, was he, that's a question, was he always that good?
I think a lot of people were like, where was this guy? Why did he not play last year? He was on the team last year. Why didn't he play? I think he just finally got his opportunity. And then you see, I don't think even Eastern Michigan knew. They didn't even know what to do. Because, I mean, he scores 4 touchdowns. You're just like, you look up, you're just like, how did this guy do it? Where did this guy come from? But it's like, no, he's been here. He's been that good. He just now finally had his opportunity to blossom.
How'd that process all go down? And how'd you guys, I mean, you guys announced you were coming back before the portal even opened. So
yeah.
How'd that all come together where you were able to all make that collective decision that we want to take one more go at this together?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it just had to do with the conversations we had with each other. I think it was obviously like in the midst of last year, like, we were struggling as a team at one point. We were sitting in 3-6 at one point in the season, which was super tough. And so like you're sitting there, like for me, my mind was made up. Like a year ago when we had that conversation, like I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Like this is where I want to be. I want to play for Coach Kenny and I want to play for Coach Keppel. Like I don't want to go anywhere. And so it's just trying to convince those guys like Bo and CD, and which was such a blessing. And those guys, I mean, they're such good dudes, and they're not too much of themselves. They have no pride. They have no ego. They're just They just work so hard. And I mean, they're so humble. And so it's like being able to have this conversations with those guys, like sitting down with them and be like, hey, like, what are your thoughts about next year? There wasn't a whole lot of, trying to convince them, hey, we should do that. It's like, hey, like, are we on the same page? Are we on the same page? All right, cool. And then
Awesome.
it was such an easy process, and we collectively came together, and we obviously announced we were coming back, and it's just so cool to be able to do it. Kind of, well, I mean, I guess now the 5-for-5 rule, those guys technically come back another year, but just to do it one more time with those guys, I mean, this has been awesome.
Gotta ask, do you think this team can beat Texas? They got you at a 30, I think like 30 plus 30-point underdog right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that's too wide? Do you think you guys coming to that first game of the year, ready to go own Austin? It would be the biggest. I think it would be the biggest win in Texas State history if the win was able to happen week 1 this year.
Like right out of the gate, we get to play one of the best teams in the country. I think it's really gonna just see like, okay, like what are we about? It's gonna be kind of a really good test of football, and you just kind of gotta ask yourself like, all right, like can we go in there? Can we take care of the football? Can we make good decisions? And ultimately, can we execute our assignments? And if we can do that, the score will take care of itself. So
I can't wait either. And kind of going back full circle, we talked about this whole discussion. How much of a factor was FCA in you staying here?
Yeah, it's a lot. It was a lot. It was a very, very big factor because, like I said, it goes back to that relationship piece. Like, me and Pat Ford, who's our team chaplain, and now, that relationship that I've had with him for over 2.5 years, it played a big part. Like, I don't, it's just like, you're like, I can't bring myself to be able to leave that guy, right? And especially for him, depending on me so much to be kind of the representation in football and to be the leadership, that leadership for spiritually, right, for football. That's just something that ultimately I feel like I owe him. And then also like Ray Knight, who's another guy who we have full-time staff here at FCA, like one of the best dudes I ever had, a really, really cool story. And so like guys like him, it's just like, at FCA, like, you have these relationships that are only here at Texas State. And it's funny, like you go talk to people, like I was able to go golfing with essentially like one of the heads of Texas or running FCA. And he basically was like, Brad, like I want you to know, like the FCA here at Texas State, like you'll go around other places in Texas, like it's not the same, not even close to the same presence, ultimately that same dedication that Pat has. And so when you're understanding that you're doing it more than yourself, and you look at what we've, really what God's built here at Texas State, it's just something that you're like, man, I want to be a part of this.
At the end of the season, when I'm talking to you, what story do you think you're going to be telling about this Texas State football team?
I think it's just going to come down to how, man, we were so close. Like it's like, especially like as a team, I think like, like right now, especially like going through workouts and stuff like that, like there's the amount of love we have for each other right now. I feel like I've said this every year, but I think every year the standard increases as far as like, man, like we have just like a family here. And I think that's the biggest thing. You can't, go to war with somebody you don't like. You're just like, man, like I don't like, cause like, it's 3rd and 10 and you're in the 4th quarter, in the middle of September where it is 102 degrees, like you have to be able to love the guy, to an extent, to go out there and fight for him. And ultimately the defense, all right, they let up a score. Don't worry, defense, we got you. We're going to go put up the points. And ultimately, if we go 3 and out, all right, the defense is, cheering us on. I think we have that this year. And so I think that's something that I feel like I'm going to look back on this point and be like, yeah, like, no, I'm super happy we were able to come, close as a family, ultimately a brotherhood, to go out there and fight for each other.